Hey, I'm Thomas. I'm an engineer in the Create IDE group at GitLab, and I'm gonna quickly show you what I've been working on in the last week. I was trying to figure out how could we take our desktop extension that's been around for years and years and pre-install it into the WebIDE, which is our new WebIDE based on VS Code. And on this issue that I'm going to link in the video, you can just read through some definitions of what is the desktop extension. It looks like this, and it's running inside of your desktop VS Code. What is the WebIDE? That's our browser version of VS Code with a little bit of a GitLab logic on top. And then really important part is the code suggestion feature that is implemented in the desktop extension. It's implemented as a couple files, but in WebIDE it's a separate extension because the workflow extension wasn't available or still isn't available in WebIDE, and so we had to create a new extension just for code suggestions. And so there is now duplication of work between the desktop extension and WebIDE, where if you want to have a feature in both, it's VS Code, so it shouldn't be, you would want to keep those experiences similar. And if you want to have a feature in both, you need to copy paste the code between the two projects. And so what I was working on I was trying to figure out how would we take the desktop extension and make it compatible with WebIDE. Currently it isn't compatible because you've got, in the desktop extension, you have access to like the whole host operating system. You can run arbitrary commands, you can make HTTP calls regarding of the browser security, you can manipulate files, use the Git repository, use OS keychain. All of these things are not available in browser. On top of that, we've got desktop specific concepts. When you have your VS Code open, like I'll open the VS Code here with the GitLab extension, like you see that there is a one project, but I can go and say file, add folder to workspace, and I can take, for example, I can take GitLab agent and add it. And now there are two projects, and for both of them I can see issues that are assigned to me. Like the extension supports multiple projects. Not only that, it supports multiple accounts. I can have my personal account and my work account on gitlab.com both stored in the same extension, and I can pick which one I want to use. And these concepts are not translatable to WebIDE, where in WebIDE, if I'll open it, for example, I'll open the GitLab. I'll open WebIDE. Here you have the one project that you just opened that you are editing. There is no other projects, no other accounts. And so bringing the workflow into WebIDE will entail creating abstractions over these resources that are only available on desktop and over these, and abstracting away these concepts. So a feature of our extension that needs only one project and API access can run in both the WebIDE and the workflow. So here I explained roughly how I would imagine migrating some of the features to the from workflow, or make workflow support some of these features in both browser and desktop. But you can read it. I want to go into more detail of how it technically works, and I want to showcase the proof of concept. So I'll start with roughly explaining how the sharing of logic will work. There is more technical details, but what I want to describe here is we will have a shared features. Just make it larger. We will have a shared features that are using an abstraction for getting current project, for calling GitLab API, and this implementation of this abstraction is going to be different for desktop and for browser. But because we can create two extension files, two entry files, we can initialize the extension differently on web and desktop, and we can plug in implementation of this abstraction based on the platform. So that's the long story short, and this is what I'm going to show you in the code. So first I'll show you how it works. Let's say I'll start first. I'll create a command called hello command. It's very simple. It just shows information message, which is the little toast showing in the bottom right corner in VS Code, and shows you the project name. So that's a simple command that I wanted to port to both WebIDE and desktop environments. Now we've got two entry files now. One of them is called browser, and this is what we are calling from WebIDE. When WebIDE initializes the workflow extension, it calls this activate method. Now we also have the existing extension file, which is the entry point for the desktop extension. There is also an activate method here, and that's used by desktop VS Code to initialize the extension. Now, what is the key part is that we are having abstraction called project manager. That's how I imagine it's going to have a different name, but that's going to be the abstraction of the platform specific logic, and all our commands that can run in both browser and desktop will just use this abstraction. Here we have got only the abstraction can get you current project that you have opened and executing API commands, and that's all we need for the hello command. I'll show you how it works on desktop. So I'll start the VS Code extension for desktop, and I'll run the hello command once I'll see that the GitLab Workflow extension has been initialized. There is a missing. I haven't solved the assets yet, but the extension is initialized, and I can run, say, hello world, and it shows hello test project because I've got test project open, but this is actually accessing API. And I can now go and do similar thing for the WebIDE. I can start our WebIDE example app, and start, and I can run the same command. This proof of concept actually builds the workflow for browser, loads it into our WebIDE, and now I can run the hello command, and it calls hello GitLab, which is actually the name of the project that's been opened. And so this is showing how the proof of concept works. The command is very simplified, but that's roughly it. The key parts that I've done, and I'll just show you in here instead of going through the code. We've created an abstraction, as I showed you, project manager, and then we implemented it differently on desktop. On the desktop, we are reusing the existing logic for getting you an active project and getting the GitLab service. That's the API layer. And for browser, I've implemented a mediator command, which is existing way how to authenticate API calls for executing. I implemented generic mediator command for executing any API call, and I'm supplying the project that the WebIDE opened. And that's roughly it. You can have a look at issues breakdown, how I imagine roughly that we would work on migrating the workflow into WebIDE. I've got a few concerns that I'm not going to go through in this video, and that's the showcase. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you think in comments on this issue.